Hi guys, we love you. Um, the phone calls have been released on Chris Watts' boss, and his name is Luke, and his job is direct supervisor, production foreman. That is his title. On Monday, east of Brighton, oil well trying to get running. That was the oil well that Chris Watts went to that day. They were having a lot of problems and they had to get it up and running. And so that's why um, I guess Chris Watts went to that site. I'm not sure if the coworker called him up and told him he was going to do it, and Chris Watts said, "No, I'll do it. I'll do it." Well, he ends up doing it, but apparently they were keeping in touch by phone calls and texts that morning. You know, and Luke also says that the GPS on his truck will tell you exactly what time he got there and where he moved his truck at all times. Luke said, as soon as you switch the car on, the engine starts running, the GPS kicks in. Um, that's what Luke said. So there is nowhere Chris could go in that truck without his boss knowing. Now, this is not to say that his boss knows exactly where he is at one given time until he looks it onto the computer and then tracks them. Make sure they were at the job when they were supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. But Luke's boss also said that you can use the truck just to say that you wanted to go shopping on the way home and you're not going to A to B, you're going to stop at the store or something like that. He said, that's fine. You can do that. Just let me know and I'll record it. Yep, those miles were unaccounted for. Where were you? Oh, yeah, okay, you stopped at up the store. But that's okay, he said. But you're not allowed to use the truck to go 20, 30 miles every day, this way, that way, out of your way. That's not allowed. But, just to get to A to B, that's fine. So that's kind of what he told the detectives. Um, the detective asked, did Chris Watts confide in you? Did he tell you anything? Um, what was his state of mind? He said Chris Watts, he knew he was having trouble with the wife, you know. He wasn't very happy with things that was going on. And so he didn't really know exactly what was going on in their marriage and now exactly how he felt about his wife and his children. It's just that he says, guys do talk about problems in their marriages and stuff. He says, but, you know, a lot of people just work it out. They're having problems. He knows that. But as he did talk to Chris, he did find him very hard to talk to him like say, conversation wise. You really have to like push him. Do you know what I mean? It's like a one-way conversation, if you know what I mean. That's kind of how it was. But he was a very good worker. He knew his job and he was so helpful. He would help other guys out. Anybody wanted to know anything, number one. Chris was number one. Call him up. He'll know everything about a situation. That's what kind of person he was on the job. Chris liked to know his job well, and he did his job well. Um, they also said, um, Chris wanted He asked his boss also if he could use the truck uh, to go to a friend's house if need be, because he feels like he's going to be kicked out the house and he'll have nowhere to go. And he doesn't have a vehicle. So he said, can he use the truck? And his boss said, sure, because, families do have problems. And if he has to get out the house and go somewhere or a hotel, that would be fine. Just let me know if you ever use the truck for this situation. I can understand. I'm not that kind of boss. He says, it's family here. We treat our coworkers as family. Anything we can do to help out a fellow coworker, we are going to do that. So he says he didn't have no problem with that. He was asked, do you know anything about financial problems, money? And he says, no, he doesn't know how bad their financial problems were. He never spoke to Chris like that. He said he also knew Chris would talk about his kids, how sick they are, and how sick they had been. And, obviously he needs a day off because his wife is sick too. She has problems um, in the past, and she's had surgery, all those problems that we know about. Chris had talked to his boss about that, probably because he's letting him know that he might need time off. You know, unexpectedly, boom, I need tomorrow off. And that would be fine, because he said, we are family here. And if your family are sick, your family come first. What a nice boss. He's very understanding. And you know what? This oil business that they work in, he said, is very demanding. And you need to be on top of it. We don't need no emotional person that's his mind is elsewhere and not on the job. Because if it's not on the job, very serious things can happen. And so he explained to the detective about that part. So, if you're having issues and your mind's not there, don't come to work. No, we don't need you here. You're a liability. And we don't need big mistakes. We don't need no mistakes. Safety comes first. So he tells him a little bit about that part of it and how the job works and how, he gives him time off, or any other coworker has got problems. He will understand. He wanted to let his coworkers that he might be a hard man, but he also has feelings and understands family, because we are family. I think he couldn't stress that enough, really, the way he was talking. Um, he also says, Chris, his personality. He said he was quiet and reserved, you know, and he had to, like I said earlier, kind of drag the conversation out of him. It's very hard for him to um, get a conversation going other than, maybe work. Work was fine. But anything else, it was just like, if people don't want to tell you the problems, they don't have to. But it seemed like Chris had nothing else to talk about. You know, if you talk to him about NASCAR or something, was into cars, he probably would have a good old conversation with you, because, like other friends said, once you mentioned that, there was no stopping him. He was really light up, He'd light up because somebody's talking to him that he's interested in, that he knows a lot about. So it seems like Chris Watts talked a lot if he was interested in the conversation. Otherwise, he was socially awkward and stuff like that, which a lot of people have said about him. He's quiet and reserved. And he said he was the most nicest man. Friends said he was great. They would never think he would do such a thing or anything would happen. They never thought he was that kind of person. Well, that's what happens sometimes, isn't it? Your best friend, your friend, because these coworkers are friends, but they're not your friends, if you know what I mean. You are doing a job and you don't really see them outside the job very often. So you don't know them, do you? You really don't. There's very few people that knew Chris Watts when it comes down to it. Even in the past, his friends. Yeah, they were his best friends, but they didn't know him, did they? Because it seems like Chris Watts didn't have a good friend to talk to like Shanann did. Shanann had her friends, but they weren't her friends. They were co-workers and they had to sell. This is what they were about. They were about communicating well with each other and selling a product. But she did have a few friends that she kept in touch with and who she'd tell absolutely everything to because, as we know, the facts in texts and maybe emails, but a lot of phone calls to each other and texts that her friends are saying, and they couldn't believe uh, that he did this. He would be capable of doing what he did. Now, when Shanann was talking to her friends, she did explain what was going on. His mood swings, or he doesn't love her anymore. She thinks he's messing around with another woman. The other friend's telling her, check his phone. Check it. Keep checking his phone. And Shanann was checking his phone. So it seems like Chris Watts didn't have a password on his phone. I wonder why. Because he didn't care? Why didn't he think about getting a password on his phone? Did he want her to find out? Well, I don't know because apparently Chris was deleting his texts. And that put more suspicion on Shanann, saying he's deleting stuff. He's even deleting texts from his dad. Now, who does that? That's their conversation between her and her friend. Why would he delete messages? Well, this is some secrecy here. He didn't want his wife finding out that he's talking to his dad. Now, I don't know what the situation is there. Who cares if he's talking to his dad? Why should she care if he's talking to his dad? Shanann talks to her mother and dad. You know, it's up to them what they talk about. But Shanann is stressing in these texts that family comes first. She got a pyramid. And on this pyramid is husband and kids come before my parents. Kids come before any of our parents. And why should I have to uh, defend my kids from the world? And I got to defend them from family. Well, she's talking about Chris Watts' mother and father, or mainly the mother. But we want to know, why would she text these words? Protect them. Every family has arguments, and the mother-in-law is not agreeing with what's going on. If that's just normal stuff, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes family members take over, which is true. They do. But in this instance, it's like, okay, the mother-in-law's done a couple of things wrong. Okay, she doesn't like her very much, but she's getting on with her because her son is married to her. And she did babysit, and she did come down to Colorado a few times out of the year. She did. So if it was that bad off, how come that they would leave their kids with her? if they didn't trust her. Well, things like that. Do you know what I mean? So these arguments and stuff wasn't happening every day, but when they did, she exploded about it and let rip. But that doesn't mean it happened every week, every day for the last 8 years. It doesn't mean that at all, because we're not going that far back. We're not going that far back at all. I'd like to see conversations between them a long time ago to see what they were like, because right now in the last few months, or even the last 6 months, it has surely got a lot worse, I guess. And that's only because Chris Watts is telling his mother and father stuff and then telling Shanann stuff. God knows what's going on. But anyway, about the boss Luke, Chris told his boss that, because his boss had called him up that night to talk to him a couple of times, Chris was saying he don't like the attention. He don't like all this attention. And he wants to come back to work. See, this happened on the Monday. The wife was reported missing. He apparently calls his boss up and tells him what's going on. I got to go home. Apparently my wife is missing, or something could have happened and the police are there, or on their way, and I got to let him in the home. So his boss says, sure, that's okay, go, kind of thing. But Chris was saying to his boss that he wants to come back to work. And this was the Monday, so maybe the Tuesday, he talks to him again and says, I want to come back to work. My God, Chris Watts wants to come back to work. His wife's missing, and he says he wants to come back to work. And he not only asked him once, he asked him twice. But the boss Luke said, no way, no way. You can't come back to work because you're state of your mind. And that's not, it's a safety issue. No, he said, told him, no, you need to focus on your missing wife. Your missing wife. So anyway, he tells Chris tells Luke that, well, his wife's purse and her phone and her car and the kids' car seats are in the car. He tells his boss this. So his boss is thinking, strange, And so he just tells him a little bit about what's going on with the police in his home. And, the dogs are here, the detectives, the police, the commander, it goes on. The whole workforce is there, But, the military ain't there. That's about the only people that ain't there. But everybody else is there. And he also tells Luke it's a nightmare. Well, we heard him say it's a nightmare that he can't wake up from. It's a nightmare. He just wants them back. He wants them back home now. He wants them back home now. But as we know, he's never going to get his wish, because he knows damn well what he has done with them. And when he said it's like a movie, and I thought to myself, the movie, would that be Shutter Island? Would that be? Would that be the movie you're thinking of? Wow. Anyway, so he goes on to tell Luke all this and stuff like that. So that's the telephone interview of Luke, his boss from his job. And the detectives, say thank you. They both say thank you. And the detective says, I will call you back if I need more information. So that is Luke, his boss. And nobody can say a bad word about Chris. And some of his friends don't know his wife very well, so they didn't comment too much about her, other than, the kids are sick. And it seems like Chris was telling them that everybody's sick in their home. You know, I don't know if he ever told his co-workers, oh, we went to the beach, we went to the park, we went to a fairground, we went out for ice cream. Oh my God, we went out to see this show. It don't seem like he was talking about stuff like that. It was always about problems with the wife, problems with the kids and them being sick. And where was the good times? Why didn't you talk about other things like, like I just mentioned, going to the park? We had a Christmas thing. The kids got dressed up, or we got dressed up and I was Santa. Where's all these things that he could have talked about like normal people do? Like if you were a woman, you would have just said, yeah, you'd say your kids are sick, but you'd also say lots of other stuff. We I took the kids out this weekend. We had a fun time. We went and got ice cream, just me and my kids. We went out and got cheeseburger. Well, they had a fun time. No, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that whatsoever. So if you guys have heard him say, or heard his coworkers say, or friends say about all this fun stuff that they did, it's all a downer, isn't it? It's all the downer stuff, you know, because that's the way he was. He's a downer, I guess, eh, just thought of miserable things, But we want to know, what's the fun things that you did? You know, we know he didn't have much of a life, um, but that's the outcome of it. So let's discuss this video and write down your comments if you heard anything else, and let's discuss this video. Thank you.